I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
Welcome into another edition of the James Boyd Podcast. I, of course, am James Boyd, not joined by Jim Aiello. He remains on paternity leave. We know the family is doing well, but we have the institution that is Bob Kravitz filling in his place. Bob, how you doing?
I'm good. Are you saying I need to be institutionalized?
I'm not saying that. There's been maybe a few Patriots fans throughout the years that have suggested that, but
yeah, they've suggested worse.
Exactly. I won't go down that road too far. But I would say, as far as you talk about being institutionalized and maybe need some mental health advocacy and things like that. And I don't want to joke about it too much, but in all seriousness, there's some stressed Colts fans right now because of the state of this team, quite frankly. So to recap the last week or so, you have Anthony Richardson Sr., who was supposed to be your franchise savior. He requested trade out. This is during the combine. You follow that up and you place the transition tag on Daniel Jones. So that means he's sort of under contract, but sort of a free agent. We'll get more into that. And then we have Alec Pierce now set to become an unrestricted free agent. And that's where I want to start, Bob. We did hear from him, and we know Alec is not a talker. No. So I don't know who got in his ear and told him, hey, you need to get out there and make your case. But he made an appearance on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams yesterday, and he was quite candid about wanting stability at quarterback, a bigger role, what he can do on the field with a bigger piece of the pie. So from that perspective, Bob, do you think that there is a chance Alec could leave?
Yes, I think it's likely. Not only is there a chance, I think it's likely. I mean, they've got to reach a decision by Monday, I believe. And it sounds like Pierce is ready to pursue free agency, see what's out there. I think he's excited about it, and I can't blame him. I mean, my question is, when they got rid of Adonai Mitchell, they knew they were going to be in this situation. Why didn't they sign Pierce a year earlier? I mean, so often we see contracts done a year before they need to be done. And the Colts have done that, very often during the Ballard years. Why didn't they sign him to a contract prior to him reaching free agency? I don't understand. Do you?
No, I don't. And here's the theory that I have, Bob, and feel free to weigh in. The way I look at it was, and I did write this last year. Now, you never look up what you got wrong last year. I don't look up what I got right. But I did write last year throughout the offseason. I put out like, hey, here's 10 things the Colts should do. And one of them was to extend Bernard Ryman and Alec Pierce. Yes. They did one, but not the other. And at the time it was, well, you have A.D. Mitchell on your team. He could be an ascending player. And Michael Pittman Jr. was coming back from the fractured back. Could he be who he once was? And Alec only had really one good year so far. But my argument at the time was, well, assuming he stays healthy, at the very least, at that point in time, he was a great deep threat. And for that, you probably could have got him. I think, honestly, who's to say a year ago at this time, $18 million annually doesn't do the trick? Because now,
I agree with you. He was a one-trick pony. Now he comes back. He's 1,000-yard pass receiver and does it on 47 receptions?
Yes.
Incredibly impressive.
Bob, I don't think that they ever really planned for A.D. Mitchell to kind of have the blunderous, or that even a word, blunder-filled season that he had with the Colts this past year. And moving on from him, they went big with the Sauce Gardner trade. And the trickle-down effect is that now you're at the mercy of Alec Pierce. And the two things he mentioned, Bob, and I'll kind of put you on the spot. He said he wants stability at quarterback and winning culture.
Yeah.
How many starting quarterbacks do you think Alec Pierce has had in his 4 years as a Colt? I looked it up.
I would say 6.
9.
9. Holy
9.
smokes.
There's been 9 different starting quarterbacks throughout the Alec Pierce 4-year era. Like that to me lets you know already that, again, the stability you're looking for, that you're advocating for, is now tied to a guy in Daniel Jones, who, by the way, was one of those 9,
right,
who's coming off an Achilles tear and may not be the same player that he was for the first half of last year. So then now, assuming Alec Pierce will weigh all his options and he will have suitors. We just actually saw this come across the timeline. One of those suitors appears to be out of the mix. The Bills just traded for DJ Moore from the Bears. So that's good news for the Colts.
Yeah,
hey, because I was thinking to myself, boy, Josh Allen throwing some moon balls to Alec Pierce. Those folks would have been diving through tables, for years up there in Buffalo if that worked out. Yeah. But now I want to pivot back to Daniel Jones and the transition tag, Bob. Do you think the Colts made the right decision on who to tag?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think they picked the right guy because I think you always take the quarterback. I mean, Alec Pierce with no quarterback is useless, and so, yeah, I agreed with them going to Jones first with the tag. I figured if you're going to tag one guy, if you're going to keep one guy, it's got to be Jones. But, if you're Pierce, you don't know, in a couple of weeks, Jones might be looking at moving on. I mean, he can draw offer sheets from anywhere in the league. So, in a month's time, there's no quarterback certainty in Indianapolis. I would have thought they would have signed him to the franchise tag.
Yeah.
And even though it's a little more, it's what, 6 million, 7 million more a year. But at this point they've got to reach a long-term deal with Daniel Jones because they're in a position where they can lose both these guys for nothing.
And that's the part, Bob, that's scary because again, you've sold us all offseason that these two guys are going to be here. You've talked as if, honestly, both guys are already under contract.
Right.
You put yourself into a position where you don't have any leverage really with either. You have some now because of the tag on Jones, but I say that because if we will go back to November, they make the trade for Sauce Gardner. That was, I believe, the week after they got embarrassed in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. Right. They had started off very hot, and it was like that one stinker Daniel Jones game, one stinker game for the offense, and it was really, to me, Bob, the last exit ramp before you fully committed to Jones by trading your next 2 first-round picks, going all in for Sauce Gardner, and then now you look up, and a few months later, you have no first-round picks over the next 2 years. The only other quarterbacks you technically have under contract right now are Riley Leonard, a 2025 6th-round pick, who is not Tom Brady, although some of the fans would like me to believe that.
Yeah.
And Anthony Richardson, who, oh, by the way, last week he wanted out.
Right.
He still wants out, and the Colts will work with him to move on. So I think that even though Daniel played, half a season of good football, he gained so much leverage because the Colts do not have a backup plan. There is no contingency plan, which is why I agree with you. I think that tagging Jones was worth it, but the transition tag is a little scary because it doesn't involve any compensation. So to explain this to the listeners a little bit, had they used the franchise tag on Daniel Jones, any team that comes in and wants to offer him a new contract, you would have been entitled to receiving 2 first-round picks if you let him go to a new team. All right.
You sign him to that, he's staying.
Exactly. No one's going to
Nobody's going to
offer
go
two
after him.
first-round picks for him. I mean,
Right.
no one offered two first-round picks years ago for Lamar Jackson. Now we can say it was
Right.
collusion and all of that, but the bottom line is it did not happen for, at the time, an MVP caliber quarterback, which is
Exactly.
now Daniel Jones. He might be the MVP at the bank, Hall of Famer at the
Yeah.
bank. But Bob, that is an interesting position to be in. And so when I'm looking at this from trying to analyze it from a bird's eye view, it just speaks to, in my opinion, and please, you've been covering the league for a long time, how desperate teams can be to just find a competent quarterback. And I think that Daniel Jones is good when he's healthy, but the Colts are terrified of trying to start over again at that position. So now they hitch their wagon to a guy who is coming off an Achilles tear. And oh, by the way, he only played one full season in his first 7.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Yeah, let's say Minnesota, because that's a team we keep hearing about. Let's say Minnesota offers him 40 some odd million. Do you think the Colts match, or do you think they say, nah, we'll go in another, yeah, we'll bring in Kyler Murray.
I think that they would match.
I
I
think
think
they
they
would
really
too.
would. And I
I
think
do
that is
too.
because,
They got no choice.
right, you don't have a choice. And I get it. The fans are like, you always have a choice. Don't pay him that much money. But I look at it from this perspective, Bob. And I'm not even saying these guys deserve necessarily this level of trust when I get to the point, but how do you walk into the locker room if you're Chris Ballard and tell Quentin Nelson and tell DeForest Buckner and tell whoever else, these guys that really do believe in Daniel Jones, at least when he was healthy, and you say, you know what, we're going to start over again.
Right. You can't. You just can't. I mean,
Now, some might say they don't deserve that level of like say so, and that's fine. But then they could just ask out, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm sick of
yeah.
this.
Well, what blows me away is that I thought for sure both guys were going to be brought back. You tag one guy, you sign the other guy. Um, the idea that this is an either or situation, that this is a choice between these two guys. I mean, to lose Pierce, a second round pick, a guy who's come along really nicely for nothing is mind-boggling to me, and it speaks to the incompetence of their front office at this point.
Yes, and we've had this debate on 107.5 The Fan, Bob, about how much you should trust a front office. Like, for example, this is why I think the transition tag is a little bit tricky because, again, there's no draft compensation involved, which in theory should make more teams want to just get in the mix for Daniel Jones. Because in theory, if it's like, hey, we're a team with a bunch of cap space, we'll just pay you whatever because we want you that bad. That's a possibility. The other possibility is kind of like what happened with Miles Turner in the Bucks. You remember what
Yes,
happened last year where you thought you knew all the challengers for this player, and then some team came out of nowhere and did something really weird
crazy with
to
what's
Lillard.
Lillard, yeah.
They waived his contract. They, gave him some
Yeah.
of the biggest wave money in the league at about $100
Stretching
million.
wave.
That never happens
No,
until it did. And then the center that you thought you had, and you were trying to, I guess, kind of not, I don't want to say lowball, but you didn't want to pay him perhaps more than what he was asking for or what his asking price was, and he left. Now they've pivoted since then, and I think the Pacers have earned a certain level of trust
yes,
where it's like, okay, maybe that wasn't the best way to go about it. And I don't want to make it seem like Miles Turner was just like this one-sided debate. There's people that were glad to let him go after his finals performance. But the point is, even now, so they pivoted and got Zubats, but they also took a risk with the ping pong balls. And is this going to be a top 4 pick? Is it not? Was it worth it? They've earned the trust because we've seen them deliver. What have the Colts earned for you to trust that this is all going to work out? That's the part I'm having a hard time with, Bob. So talk me off the ledge, man.
well, I can't do that. What I don't understand is why didn't they give him the franchise tag as opposed to the transition tag? It's costing you what? An extra six
Six
to seven
million.
million
Yeah.
dollars, which is a drop in the bucket
Yeah.
for a football franchise. I don't understand why are you taking this risk to save $6-7 million?
And that's the question I can't wait to ask. I guess in theory, you're trying to keep every dollar possible. And you believe that, okay, Daniel Jones, we love you, or we like you, but we don't love you. And we're not going to let you bully us into some big, crazy contract based off of, because in theory, if you franchise tag him, I think that was at maybe like 43 million, 44,
Right.
somewhere in that range, then that's his starting price annually for his new deal. And maybe
Right.
you're saying we don't want to pay that. But then, like you said, the trade-off is, well, you don't really have an answer fully
Right.
on Daniel Jones. And then with Alec Pierce, you don't have an answer there either, because when he did talk on the Kay Adams show, he mentioned, oh, yeah, stability means a lot to me. I had to treat the Colts like they were a team without a quarterback until they got something done with Daniel Jones. And then he kept talking and said, they're still figuring that out.
Yeah.
He mentioned, hey, they got to get a long-term deal done, which is true. So for those listening, here's a quick explainer. The Colts technically are over the cap because when you sign a player to a franchise tag, all that money is fully guaranteed and it hits your salary cap immediately. They have until next Wednesday, I believe, at noon or 4 p.m., whatever time of the day that is. But they have until next Wednesday to get cap compliant with the rest of the league, which basically means they got a week to clear the books, to restructure some deals, cut some players, and, oh, by the way, reach a long-term agreement with Daniel Jones. Because if they do that, then you can spread the cap hit out over a few years, and that gives you the flexibility to perhaps pursue Alec Pierce. But am I confident all that's going to happen by Monday when other teams can, do the legal tampering period and start making offers to him? I'm not so sure about that, Bob. And I think that is a legitimate concern about how things could fall apart, because if you don't have an answer for Daniel Jones by Monday, and let's say a team like the Patriots comes in and says, we'll give you $32 million a year, you don't even have an ability to match, let alone contemplate doing it.
Right.
So it's tough. It's tough.
I can't talk you off the ledge because I think they're playing with fire here, man. They're playing with fire. I mean, I just don't understand why they won't make a greater financial commitment to Daniel Jones. I realize he only played 10 games last year, 8 games. I forget what it was, but Bakers can't be choosers. I mean, this team hasn't had a quarterback since Phillip Rivers 1.0, and I mean, it's just why they're putting themselves in this predicament is really hard to understand. Now, I don't make a habit of calling Chris Ballard and asking him what he's thinking, but boy, I'd like to know unless they have a good feeling that they're going to get this Jones deal done by Monday, and this is just a bridge.
Yeah, and
that's
that
the only
to
thing
me
that makes sense to me.
Exactly. And I tried to go like full blown, they're idiots, they're dumb. Like, no, they have to be working on something. But again, I go back to that trust factor, because when push comes to shove and we do get tangible results, they haven't worked out for the Colts. And you mentioned how they haven't had a stability at quarterback. To kind of left you all in a hanger there listening. The 9 quarterbacks that Alec Pierce has caught a pass from, I believe, in the NFL, at least started a game with: Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger, Nick Foles, Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson, Joe Flacco, Daniel Jones, Phillip Rivers, and Riley Leonard.
Yeah.
Like, that is not stability. And then he mentioned winning culture. They have not made the playoffs since 2020. The world was different back then. They haven't won a playoff game since 2018.
Right.
I was graduating college and about 3 or 4 jobs away from this one. So, I mean, things have changed quite a bit. And I do want to mention here, too, because it's crazy, too. With all of the stuff we talked about, transition tag, Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce, free agency, you still have other needs to address.
Defense.
So my question to you, Bob, is how do you address that going forward? Like let's assume, for the sake of argument, you're able to retain Daniel Jones and retain Alec Pierce. What other needs need to change for this team to be for real?
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
They got to work on their front seven, especially the linebackers. I mean, I'm pretty satisfied with what they got on the back end.
Yeah.
But I think, if we've seen the last of Zaire Franklin, that wouldn't completely surprise me. I don't think Jermaine Pratt is the guy moving forward. So I think they need more youth and more speed at the linebacker spots. The good thing is, in the draft, Ballard has shown a real ability to get linebackers. He hasn't done very well on edge rushers.
Oh, no.
He's drafted about 7 of them, and none of them have been worth a crap. But it's they are in deep stuff right here. Free agency. I still like the idea of going after Hendrickson.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't know the financials involved there, whether they have the room to do that. They're going to have to do a lot of screwing around with existing contracts if they want to make that kind of thing happen.
Exactly. Oh, I totally agree. I would echo you on the linebackers. I would echo you on the edge rushers. I think edge rushers outside of Latu, you don't have one in your roster that you care about moving forward, quite frankly. I mean, I don't want to be rude. JT Tuimoloau, second-round pick last year. Yeah, that's great. He barely played. So the only one who's shown some promise is Latu. Tyquan Lewis, Kwity Paye, and Samson Ebukam, three of those guys. You know how many sacks they combined for last year? 9. You know how many sacks Latu had on his own last year? 8.5.
Yeah.
So 3 of your top 4 guys, they have to produce better than that. But again, I think it all starts with the domino of Daniel Jones reaching a long-term deal, trying to retain Alec Pierce. And this is what Chris Ballard said. We're going to try to get these 2 guys done and then build the rest of the team around them. But
you're not even getting your foundation established.
Exactly. But the reason why I think so much of this is about just how much the Colts ultimately are willing to spend on Daniel Jones, willing to spend on Alec Pierce, is the idea that basically you decided to run it back, you being Carly Ursay-Gordon. You ran it back with this regime and this quarterback because you all were convinced that the 10 games we saw last year when they were 8-2 were the real Colts. Mm-hmm. And so to that end, Bob, what should we expect? Like, what should be their expectations for next year? I'm not saying what we should expect. I expect 8-9 for the Colts every year at this point.
Every year. That's safe.
But when Ballard says, hey, we were a top 4 team in the league before the injuries, and now you're retooling, then what's the pressure like? What are we saying is a successful season for the Colts?
I think I mean a successful season is making the playoffs. I think
Yeah, let's start baby steps. I agree.
yeah, baby. Realistically, I think they're, if Pierce doesn't come back and you've got Jones coming back from an Achilles, I think you're right around 500 again.
Yeah.
Eight
And
and nine, 9-8.
that's the scary part. Again, you're basing all of this off of being 8-2 and you finish 8-9. Now, granted, you had a lot of injuries, and I don't want to dismiss that, but boy, that is a lot to bet. And that's what they've done. They made their bed. They decided to lay in it quite early. Honestly, my grandma would probably be a little disgusted. Like, you ain't even take the covers, off the bed. You didn't even take the throw pillow off the thing. All those things.
Right.
And now you found yourself in a position where heading into 2026, you're trying to, in essence, run it back to a degree, but your two biggest pillars are not yet solidified. I don't want to panic too much because you do have a chance to, make your case. And I do think Alec Pierce, there's a world where he could come back, but it will not be cheap. And since it won't be cheap, how creative are you going to be in trying to get some things done? Like if
Well,
let's say
I don't
get,
see Pierce coming back because unless by Monday they can get Jones
yeah,
signed,
yeah,
where he says, okay, for the next 4 years or whatever the
yeah,
length of the contract is, next couple of years, I've got Daniel Jones.
right,
Then I think maybe he takes another look at the
right.
whole situation.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
as long as he's out there on a transition tag and he can be gone in 2 weeks, there's no reason for Pierce to do anything except look at free agency.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
he's going to be. I remember a couple of years ago when Jacksonville signed Christian Kirk,
Yep.
big contract, and everybody
Yep.
said, "Where the hell that come from?" I think that Alec Pierce is going to be this year's Christian Kirk.
That's a
He's going
very
to be
good
a guy who
point.
doesn't have great numbers. I mean, 1,000 yards is great, but 47 catches. He was, I think, third on the team in
Hmm.
targets or fourth. Um, he's going to be one of those guys who's going to make 28 million, and people are going to say, "What? He made what?"
Yeah, I was looking at it, Bob. If he were to get, let's call it 27 million, which is about what the tag would have been,
Right.
he would be the 14th receiver in the league to clear that threshold. So he'd be
Wow.
getting paid like a number one receiver.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say, okay, even if you get it done with Daniel Jones, you bring back Alec Pierce, if both of those guys cost you so much money, then what else are you going to do to retool the rest of your roster? You got to
That,
restructure some guys, you got to cut some guys. I did some digging on Michael Pittman Jr. It does sound like, there's a possibility he could be brought back. And you know what? One of the biggest possibilities he could be brought back for? If you lose Alec Pierce.
yeah,
You can't lose
exactly.
both. so
You can't lose both. He's
I
going
was
to throw
thinking,
it to your tight end every time.
that's what I'm saying. I'm like Tyler
Or down.
Warren, he had a great, rookie season. You're going to get bracketed and covered a little bit differently if you have no NFL receivers around you. So, um,
Laquan Treadwell.
yeah, the
He's the
journeyman
future,
first
baby.
round pick. Yeah. And I think, again, jokes aside, it's just a very delicate situation.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it's kind of fitting that this is happening going into the first time that Ballard will enter the final year of his contract.
Right.
Like he
right.
didn't get an extension. So all of this could come to a head and we could look up in a year and say, you know what? They fizzled out. They weren't any good. Ballard isn't here anymore. They're starting over. But
Right.
you still kind of hurt yourself because you don't have a first round pick again until 2028. So whatever deal you come with Daniel Jones, assuming you get that done over the next few days, Bob, there should be no guarantees beyond 2027.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
you need to be done with everybody, and you need to be able to say as an organization, we're going to hit a hard reset, start over, and start from
Absolutely.
scratch. Quite frankly,
Which is what's surprising because you've got Ballard in this make or break situation.
yeah,
You would unless ownership is
it's a good point.
is telling him we don't have the cash over cap. We don't have we just can't sign both of them.
Right.
And you never know with ownership, and this is a new ownership group basically. Um, you know, I've had plenty of agents tell me that the Colts really watch their nickels and dimes, and they have been for the last couple of years with Jim. Whether that has stayed consistent with Carly and the sisters, I don't know, but he certainly Ballard is not acting like a guy who knows he needs to get this thing right, or else he's out the door.
Yeah, and I do think that this will be certainly a topic of discussion, assuming he stays employed throughout the offseason. I know people are all like, fire him now. That is not going to
That ain't
happen.
gonna happen.
But all the questions we pose here on this podcast, Bob, I want to throw at Chris Ballard. Like, why the transition tag over the non-exclusive franchise tag?
That's what I don't get.
Did you all try to get something done with Alec Pierce last year and he just said, no, I want to play it out? I mean, that could be a possibility. Devil's advocate. But also, I mean, again, we've talked, 28, 30 minutes here on this podcast. And a footnote now is, oh, by the way, Anthony Richardson requested a trade.
Yeah.
Like that whole disaster that happened with that. And from what I was told, Anthony can see relatively fine now. He's got 20/20 vision again, according to people I talked to. And people were saying, oh, he wore glasses. He can't have 20/20. Yes, you can. You can have 20/20 and wear glasses. I'm not an optometrist, but that is a real thing. You can, do your own research on that. But the point is, it's so crazy that the Colts have had so many calamities throughout the years that is not even the big story anymore.
No.
The number 4 pick from 3 years ago is basically being shopped around now, probably for a day 3 pick or a pick swap. So that to me is crazy.
Let me put something wild at you.
Okay.
What if Jones gets a big contract offer and the Colts don't match? Do you go back to Anthony and say, hey, we've got an opportunity here?
Oh,
in
man.
Indianapolis?
Oh, boy.
How crazy would that be?
That would be nuts, Bob. That would be nuts. And honestly, I have been asked that question a lot by fans who are just curious. They're like, hey, he's still under contract and he's a lot cheaper than Daniel Jones. I don't think that's a real possibility.
I don't think so.
Ultimately, if it's either the Colts get both of them back, which is what they really want, them being Alec Pierce and Daniel Jones, or at the very least, they keep Daniel Jones. They'll give him whatever money he wants. Is that a smart idea? Probably not. I think the Colts are kind of like they're kind of in the same position as the Giants were a few years ago, whether it was Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley. They got both to come back, and, oh, by the way, they were bad as a team. So, but in regards to Anthony, I think it's just done here. And this is why I say that, Bob.
Too much water under the bridge.
Too much water underneath the bridge. And honestly, there's already been too much flip-flopping as it is. I go back to, and this was back in 2024, and I wrote it down here in a story. So in 14 days, this was right after the tap out with Anthony Richardson, right? We all knew that was an egregious mistake. It became the flashpoint in the NFL.
Right.
So they bench him. And that week, we're all asking, hey, what about his future with this team? Will he play again here? And I'll just read what I wrote. In just 14 days, Steichen went from saying he, quote, couldn't predict the future when asked if Richardson would ever start again for the Colts. Then they reinserted Joe Flacco into the lineup. And he said, well, Joe Flacco's our guy for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And then they lost 2 games and they were god-awful. And they went back to Richardson and, quote, this is what Shane Steichen said. He is going to be our franchise quarterback. For Anthony, that was 14 days. In 14 days, you said you couldn't even commit to him playing again for the franchise, starting again for the franchise, to Joe Flacco's our dude, to, oh, wait a second, we changed our mind. So I think there's been too much flip-flopping. And believe me, Anthony is not absolved of anything in this because he didn't uphold his end of the bargain either, to me, Bob. And I just think that, again, it's another stain on this Ballard resume. Like when the 49ers whiffed on Trey Lance, they're the 49ers. They've gotten it right. They've been to Super Bowl. They've won their division. They've, had playoff success. The Colts do not have their on their resume over the last 9-10 years with Ballard. So in regards to Anthony, what do you think, or how will you sum up his time here? And perhaps, take whatever direction you want, and why this didn't work out the way people envisioned that it could.
Yeah, because I think it comes back to the fact that they gave him the keys to the kingdom almost right away. A guy who had played 13 games in college. And, generally speaking, NFL people want you to play, what, 30, 40 games of college football before they feel like you're ready to play quarterback in the NFL. And he didn't come close. And even in those 13 games, well, he completed what, 54% of his passes?
Exactly.
Nothing, he never showed anything. I remember I was at an awards thing a couple of years ago, right after they drafted Richardson, and I was talking to a guy who is a TV guy down in the Great Gainesville area, and he said that kid will get everybody fired, and I think that's ultimately what's going to happen, But I think they gave him the keys to the kingdom too fast. They didn't make him work for it. They should have had him sit for at least a year. Gardner Minshew, which he proved was a perfectly fine alternative, almost got them to the playoffs. So I think the mistakes started there. Now, I do believe that Jim Irsay was very insistent on playing Richardson right away. So, I hate to give Ballard an out for all the bad decisions and say, well, he was forced into it. But I think there are situations, quite honestly, where Irsay put his foot down and said, we will get him out there just the way we did with Peyton. The difference being that Peyton played, how many games in college?
Yeah, first team All-American and great prospect. There was a lot of question marks for Anthony. And honestly, I look at it, you can blame the owner for being so pushy on drafting a quarterback. Because I'm thinking to myself, in hindsight, and of course it's 2020, no pun intended on Anthony's vision, but if he really believed in a quarterback in that class, like Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, go get him. Don't wait till the fourth pick to make your decision.
Said? They said after the draft that if they had the number one pick, they would have taken Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
Now, believe that? Hell no. but that's what they said. They are on record as saying that their judgment is so faulty that they would have taken him over CJ Stroud or even Bryce Young.
Yeah. I think that was a Jim Irsay decision. And honestly, when he told us that they would have drafted Will Levis if Anthony Richardson wasn't there at number 4, and Will Levis didn't get drafted until the second round, they told you everything you need to know. They were going to get a quarterback. They were desperate for it. I think Shane didn't necessarily tailor things enough to Anthony. I don't think Anthony knew how to be a quarterback, but it also goes back to your scouting. You all told us he was a hard worker. You told us he had great character, football character. I think he's a great young man, but football character. These are all things that came under question and made all of them look foolish because you told us he was ready for this. Yeah. You said you checked every single crevice and crack in his background. You took the swing and you missed considerably. And also, probably the biggest factor, if I'm being real, Bob, is just the injuries. The inability to stay healthy. If he doesn't get hurt his rookie year, does that look different? Even this past year, Daniel Jones goes down. If you're available and you didn't have the stretching band, incident with getting hit in the face with the broken rod from the stretching band, all that stuff, you would have been in there. Here you go. Buckle up. Win us 2 games. We get to the playoffs. You're a hero again.
Right.
And it just wasn't there. So I know we got to wrap up here soon, but it's just so much that has happened over the last year or so that could have, I think, seismic effects on this franchise. So that's why I wanted to have you on, Bob, to weigh in because you've seen a lot of iterations of this team. And boy, I know Jim Irsay endured some things, but Carly Irsay-Gordon, you got any advice for her taking over the team?
Sign Daniel Jones. Just get it done.
Get it done.
Get her done.
Exactly. So that's all we have for you here on this edition of the James Boyd Podcast. You can get this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. I thank Bob for stopping by and humoring me with some of his institutional knowledge without being institutionalized, for the record.
Not yet.
And exactly. We'll catch up with you all next time.